What time is it? Oh yeah, we should get started. So we're gonna talk about, oh, Malia's here, yay. All right. Goddesses in the house. I love our Wednesday goddess power packed thing that we've got going on here. Lady Power. So today it's Tara, and we're not going, if you're kind of keeping track of these Dasa Maha videos, has anybody not been to one of the Wednesdays? You've all been here before, right? So you know, okay, good. So, but you can always stop and ask any questions at any point. I'm gonna not mute you unless things get really loud. So at any point you can ask a question or say something or whatever you need to do today. More people coming in, hang on. I keep it on a waiting room because I don't want weirdos getting in our talks. I've heard so many stories from yoga teacher friends who've had their Zoom meetings bombed by really creepy people. So that's why it's really a weird world out there. So welcome, hi Yvette. Hey. So again, you can mute or unmute, you know, if you kind of if you feel like your background is noisy, mute yourself. Otherwise you can stay unmuted. But if you want to say anything, ask any questions at any point, please do. So today we're going to talk about Tara. So we've been oh, Yvette, you haven't been here. So I just asked if anyone hasn't been to these Wednesdays. So what we've been doing, it kind of started, I don't remember how it started actually. It started with the Yoga Sutras and then the Bhagavad Gita, I think, and it sort of morphed into a goddess theme. And we've been going over these goddesses who are called the Dasa Mahavidyas, and they're the wild wisdom goddesses. Dasa, there's 10, Dasa means 10, and we've been totally jumping around. So we've not been going, so if you're keeping track, we're not going in order at all. We went from 1, which is Kali. And that tells you, Kali is sort of like introduces you to the feeling tone, the mood of these goddesses, that they are fierce, they are wild, they're primal, they are meant to like shake you out of yourself so that you finally get it. You understand what matters and what's real. And some of them are beautiful. Like last week we did Lalita, and she's totally gorgeous. Like next week, I think we'll do Bhuvaneshwari. She's also beautiful. But some of them are also super scary looking, like Dhumavati, who we did 2 weeks ago, who's the goddess of disappointment. And so we're just talking about all these different wisdom goddesses. And Tara, she's actually number 2. So Kali is the first one. And Tara, she looks just like Kali actually. And I posted a picture of her on Instagram, a couple of them, and started with Rumi. That's it. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, I forgot. So if you want any of the past ones, you just let me know if you haven't been to any of them. I've got them all recorded. So Tara, she looks just like, I'm gonna pin my video here, and she looks like Kali. She's really, there's 2, we're going to talk about different Taras. So there's Buddhist Tara and then there's Hindu Tara. And Buddhist Tara, she tends to look more beautiful. She's very motherly and she's like soft, and her expression is so gentle and kind. And she's usually like, you know, all like delicate like a flower. Whereas Hindu Tara is really fierce, and she's got the garland of skulls and all the things that Kali has, only she's even a little more fierce because she's almost always shown with fire, either like fire behind her or fire around her, or something to do with fire to tell you that she is really, really fierce. But I thought I would start with the Buddhist Tara, and then we'll move on to the Hindu Tara. And so Buddhist Tara, she's really closely associated with Avalokiteshvara. Have you guys heard of Avalokiteshvara? Do you know, that's the Bodhisattva of compassion. And there's a really beautiful story about Avalokiteshvara, and it's this story starts with this being, Avalokiteshvara, who had spent his whole life really working on practices of love and compassion and yoga and meditation and all these things that we're doing, right? And chanting, and then like devoted his entire life to just trying to be better, to be a better version of himself, to be the best person that he can be, the most kind, the most compassionate, and the most loving. And I keep thinking, I keep saying this to my classes, you all, there's people out there right now that have not done that. Can you imagine how they're feeling during this pandemic? Like people with no practices, my mind, every once in a while, I just sort of like stop in my tracks and I'm like, man, this is hard for me. And all those people out there that just have never had a practice. Wow, I can't even imagine how hard it is. And my heart just like breaks open for all those people. And that's a lot of what Avalokiteshvara's story is about. So he's essentially, one teacher told me this story once, and she said he's climbing a mountain. And you can imagine this being climbing up this really high mountain, and it's like hard and it's rugged and it's hot and he's sweating and maybe he's crying. And this is us, right? This is us trying to do our best. This is us trying to ascend. And the mountain, always in these stories, the mountain is you, right? The mountain is your spine. The mountain is your journey, your practice, your work on yourself. And so eventually Avalokiteshvara gets to the top of this mountain, and there's this feeling of accomplishment, like, I did it. Like I actually made it to the top. And at the top, there's the knowing that, you know, this is the end of the line, that I could step over. There's a beautiful stone wall at the top of this mountain. And Avalokiteshvara knows that all I've got to do is step over that wall. And that's the end of the cycle. I don't have to come back and keep doing this torturous, sometimes human thing. I can be done with it. I can just be one with all that is and not have to get back in the wheel. And so he starts to go. He lifts his leg and he puts one leg over the wall. And all of a sudden, he hears these faint cries coming from down at the bottom of the mountain. And his heart hurts. And he stops and he takes his leg back and he really listens. And he realizes that these are the cries of all of his people, his friends, his beloveds, his family, everyone that he left down at the bottom of the mountain, and they're suffering. And so Avalokiteshvara, it means the one who hears the cries of the world. And he thinks, how can I be so selfish? Like, who am I to just go and save myself and jump over the wall, but leave everybody behind? And so standing there on the top of that mountain, he makes this great vow. He sort of looks up into the sky and he says to no one in particular, he says, I vow to go back down the mountain to help everyone. I'm going to ferry everyone across the ocean of suffering until there's not one person who's suffering. And only then can I go over that wall. And if I break my vow, he says, may my head explode. And so he goes back down the mountain. I've been thinking about this image a lot of going back down the mountain. And I heard the other day a talk with Pema Chodron, and she was saying that we often think, oh, Elizabeth's here. We often think of the mountain, right? Our spiritual journey as going up the mountain. But she said it's actually like a mountain that's turned upside down. It's a mountain where the peak is at the bottom, and we're going down and in to our lives, to the depths of our feeling, our joy and our suffering, and to help people, right? So we're not going up and out, we're going down and in. And so Avalokiteshvara goes back down the mountain and goes and starts to help people, right? Starts to listen to the cries of the world, and pretty quickly realizes two things. Number one, there's too many people who are suffering. It's overwhelming. It's just everywhere he turns, there's someone in pain. And number two, a lot of them are assholes and they don't want to be saved. They just want to keep doing their thing and they don't want to wake up. And so he gets totally frustrated and says, you know, forget it. I can't do this. You know, if I can't save everybody, there's so many people that need help. I can't do it. I'm just one person. So I may as well just save myself. Forget this vow. And of course, what happens when he does that? His head explodes. His head explodes and the pieces are all over the ground, you know, and he's like picking them up and like trying to put them back together. And just at this moment, from above descends the Amitabha Buddha, the most gentle, beautiful Buddha. And the Amitabha Buddha helps him. He starts to pick up. How sweet is that? The idea of picking up all these pieces of his broken face and skull and puts them back together. And the Buddha, in his generosity, says, look, I'm going to give you not just one head. You're going to get 11 of them now. And so he recreates Avalokiteshvara as a being with 11 heads, almost like a crown, a corona, you could say, of heads. And each of these heads is, it's interesting. I love this part that there's 10 beautiful heads. There's 10 heads that are soft and sweet and have big, kind, loving eyes. And there's one head that's hella ferocious. There's one head that just looks vicious. And, sometimes that's what we need. Sometimes sweet and loving and gentle just won't do it. And sometimes compassion is sort of like primal and fierce and ferocious. And so the Buddha recreates Avalokiteshvara. He's got 11 heads now. And Avalokiteshvara weeps. All 11 heads are weeping and saying, I can't do this. So the Buddha explains what happened. He says, there's too much suffering. And the Buddha listens, and he doesn't say anything. He just kind of goes, yeah, you're right. I can't tell you that's not true, but you made this vow. And so I can help you. This is the way I can help you. He says, I'm going to give you 1,000 arms. And so he gives Avalokiteshvara 1,000 arms. And in the center of each palm, he gives him an eye, a beautiful, loving eye. And so he says, it might be infinite, the suffering of the world. It might be endless, it might be infinite, but at least now you have 1,000 arms to help people. You have 1,000 more eyes to see it all and do the best you can with it. And so Avalokiteshvara cries. He cries, and from his tears spring 2 goddesses. And they're Tara. So some say green and white, some say black and white. There's so many different Taras, and we'll get to all of this. But essentially, Tara comes from the tears of Avalokiteshvara when he witnesses all the suffering of the world. And so it's all about facing the darkness. And man, if anything could be more relevant right now, I don't know what is. That there's something about how we, their true compassion isn't something we can sort of pretend or call upon from the outside. It's something that comes from deep, deep inside of us. And there's a calling right now for us, for the wounded healers, right? For us who've been broken and hurt and gone through stuff, to show up and to be medicine, right? The story is saying that it's up to us to be medicine, to face the darkness of our times without turning away, which is really, really hard. I don't know about you, but I'm just like, I don't want to see it. I just want to, live in my own sweet little world. And, that's just not, we could do that. I'm not going to say that we can't, but it's not helpful. And this whole thing about Tara is that it's all about help. It's all about becoming the medicine that the world needs. And there's a beautiful part at the end of that story too, where Tara sits down. And Tara, have you heard the story of the Buddha, how the Buddha takes Bhumi's Parsha mudra? That's this one that's touching the earth mudra. Sometimes the hand's on the heart and one hand on the earth. Other times one palm is facing up, back so you can see, and one hand on the earth. And it said that Tara did the same thing. So when she sprang from Avalokiteshvara's tears, she took a seat and she placed one palm face up, like holding the world, and she placed one hand on the earth. But unlike the Buddha story, in this story, the earth splits open. The entire earth cracks open at her touch. And from that crack in the earth pour out thousands of bodhisattvas to go heal the world. And so I love that part of the story. And that shows up again and again too, with this idea of Tara, that there's just infinite Taras. Like there's infinite arms. 1,000, when we talk about 1,000 in yoga terms, it sort of just means infinite, like Sahasrara Chakra, 1,000-fold, just saying it's infinite. And so that Avalokiteshvara has infinite power. I mean, what would you do if you had infinite ways to accomplish your dreams and what you want done? That's kind of like the gift of it. It's like, wow, imagine you had infinite ways to help. How would you do it? What would you do first? So I'm going to pause there and just see if there's any questions or comments yet before we move on to the sort of darker, scarier version of Tara. Anybody? No? And we'll get into her mantra too. We'll get into, and if you, at any point, if you have questions, let me know. Oh, this is kind of interesting too. And so there's a lot of question about like, well, who came first, the Buddhist Tara or the Hindu Tara? Nobody really knows. You know, everybody sort of has their own story, and that's how a lot of this sort of yoga history goes, that nobody really knows the true story. But what we do know is that until Tara came about, which was, we think about the 6th century CE, that there was no concept in Buddhism of asking for help. That she was sort of the first, the concept of asking for help didn't arise until Tara arose. And I just thought that was sort of sweet and soft. And I like that it had to be a woman who came in and was like, you know, maybe you could ask for help sometimes, and that might be nice. I know I certainly have a hard time with that, with letting people in, with even recognizing that I need help, right? You know, be like, I can do it on my own. I'm fine. I'm fine. No, really, I'm fine. And so Tara is a reminder that we can ask for help, and that we can also be that help. And she's often shown with her right foot forward, and she's sort of stepping out. And this is this idea that she's like always ready to race to you. Like the moment they said, all you have to do, so many of the Buddhist texts say, all you have to do is just think about her. Just think, that's it. Just think about her. And poof, she just runs to you. Her and her infinite thousands of goddesses will run to you if you just think about her. That's all. So let me see if I missed anything with Buddhist Tara. I think that's about it. But the Hindu Tara is the one that looks more ferocious. And she's part of this whole group of sort of fierce, wrathful. She's a wrathful deity, which is so, we keep talking about this again and again, how these images and these metaphors and these visions of these goddesses are meant to show us that everything is holy, that everything is sacred. And so there's a great story about this Tara, this version of Tara, and it starts with the sage Vashista. And Vashista studied, he was practicing yoga and austerities and, you know, doing the thing, like doing all the practices and doing all the meditating and trying to be like really good yogi. And he did it for years and years and years and years. And it went on for 10,000 years. 10,000 years of trying to reach enlightenment, and it's not working. And he got really mad. He got so upset. And so he went to Brahma and he explained his whole situation to Brahma. He's like, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the yoga, doing the meditation, doing the austerities, and it's not working. And Brahma sort of laughs and he says, well, you know, I think maybe there's someone you could talk to about this, and it's the goddess Tara. And so why don't you go ahead and do some more practices and pray to Tara, chant to Tara, do some austerities for Tara. And so Vashista goes back to his cave. And you can still, if you go to India, you can go see his cave where he did all this. It's still there. It's wild. And so he goes and he's doing it again. And he's like chanting to Tara and he's practicing and he's practicing. 1,000 years go by. And it still doesn't work. And now he's pissed. Now he's like ready to rage. He's ready to totally fly off the handle. And everybody around is sort of scared. And all the people at his ashram are afraid of what he's going to do. Egyptians, what is Malia says, Egyptians always pick their gods and goddesses with the left foot forward to ward off evil and let the heart proceed. Does the right foot of Tara have symbolism? I don't know. That's a good question. I should look that up. I'll check. Well, thanks, Malia. So, okay, hang on, where was, oh yeah, so Vashista, so he's mad, right? So he's raging. And just at this point, when he's just about to lose his mind, Tara appears. And she tells him that he's been doing it all wrong. She says, look, yoga, austerities, that's not the way to me. You've been doing this whole thing all wrong. And she says, also, I love this part. She says, you don't understand women. And that comes up a lot in these stories, that it's always sort of a man's world, and Tara is like claiming a woman's place in the world really fiercely. And so she tells him, you've been wasting your time, and come with me and I'll take you to somebody who will help you. And he says, okay, fine. So he goes with Tara to Nepal and Tibet. He ends up going to Tibet, and he goes to Tibet, and while he's there at Tibet, he's meditating, and he has this vision in his deep meditation. He has a vision of the Buddha, and the Buddha is there, and he's surrounded by beautiful naked women, and they're all drunk and they're dancing. And Vashista's sort of like taken aback, like, this is wrong. And in his vision, in his meditation, the Buddha says to him, come, join us. And Vashista's like, no, thank you. This is not the path that I choose. I'm not going to get drunk. I'm not going to hang out with naked dancing women. I'm going to stay and meditate. And the Buddha says, well, sorry to tell you, but this is how we worship Tara. And if you really want to move forward in your practice, then you got to accept this, and you got to try another way. And so Vashista finally agrees, and he lets the Buddha teach him. And it says that the Buddha teaches them about the ritual of the 5 forbidden things. And basically it's like meat. It's all the stuff we've been talking about. When we talked about Kali and Dhumavati and Matangi especially, right? That what do you offer her? Leftover food, meat, wine, ganja, like all these things, sex, right? The 5 forbidden things, sex is in there. And these are the things that you offer to Tara too. These are the things that you would put up on this altar to get blessing from this wrathful, fierce goddess. And the Buddha teaches him basically that it's all auspicious. There's nothing that's inauspicious. He says there's no difference between pure and impure. There's no restrictions on what foods you can eat or what you can drink. And I kind of giggled when I think about how so many, one in particular yoga lineage gets really, cracks down on people saying they have to be vegan, which, they have their reasons. But then there's all of this that says like, no, actually there's no difference between anything. So, and then if you are vegan, great, you have your reasons. But it's sort of, I find it so interesting that we use yoga to make these differences, like, oh, this is good and this is not. And we sort of like use yoga as this great like divider sometimes, like saying this is pure and this is not pure, and this is how you should do it and this is how you should not live. Where actually, if you go deeper into it, it's telling us that, no, it's all holy. And it's only our attachment to it that's unholy, right? That's the problem. And so these goddesses are not there to like tell you what to eat or not eat, or how to pray or not pray. You can pray anywhere. You can do an offering to these goddesses anytime. There's no times that are auspicious. And some of the older stories, it's like, oh, at this time of day, on this day of the year, on this phase of the moon, things are very powerful. And these stories with these goddesses, it's all powerful. All times, all places are holy. All people are holy. All foods are holy. All bodies are holy. Every bit of it. And then he tells him, this is great too. So it's all this woman thing. So Buddha tells Vashista too. He explains all of this about how nothing is inauspicious. And then he says, a friendly attitude towards women should be cultivated, and a worship of women should be practiced. Hallelujah. So it's really interesting too that like religion too has taken on in the last like 1,000 years or so this idea of like morality, and it was never like that. So the more ancient religions were not about morality. It was just about the forces of nature and trying to be in harmony with the way nature moves, the way the elements work. It was never about telling you you're good if you do this, but you're bad if you do that. That's sort of evolved later on. And so Tara and Kali and Matangi and Dhumavati, all these sort of fierce and scary, wrathful goddesses are trying to point us to this idea that the differences are just ones that we create, socially, morally. we create those delineations, but really there's no difference. And this is big, I think, with what's happening right now. Like, I don't know about you guys, but people are pissing me off. Right? The government, the conspiracy theorists, like social media has become such a divided hell realm of arguing and people just like spewing their hate and their opinions. And it's really hard not to be angry, isn't it? Or is it just me? I mean, I'm having a hard time with people who spread hate and people who spread misinformation, and to not let it, turn me really ugly. And as these deities, they're sort of like asking us, and Avalokiteshvara, right? And the gentle Tara too, it's saying, can you get bigger? And can you embrace the whole of it? Can you liberate yourself from your own negativity and your own delineations of like, you're good and you're bad and you're right and you're wrong? That's really, really hard. It's really hard. And as you become more liberated, you recognize the impermanence of all these sort of delineations and the way we divide things, that it's not real. I often think of Fred Rogers, right? Mr. Rogers, he used to say, you can hate a behavior, but you can't hate the person. Ugh. I really want to hate some people right now. Right? And so here's the thing too. It's like, you can't kind of do that in ordinary consciousness, right? Like you can't just say like, okay, I'm just going to love them, right? You can't go on like Facebook or watch the news and see what's happening. And these people who are so contrary to like what you think is ethical and right and moral and loving, and go, okay, I'm just going to love them all. Does it work? Has it ever worked like that? No, you can't do it in ordinary consciousness. You have to go beyond ordinary consciousness. And that's what the practices are for. That's what the mantras are for, right? And so if you're feeling that like that judgment towards someone who doesn't believe what you believe, who you think is wrong, who's evil even, then, and you try to love them and you can't, then you might just think about Tara and you chant her mantra, Om Tare Tude Soha, and you chant it and you try to shift. That's what the chanting is for. That's what these practices are for, like to shift you out of ordinary, like low consciousness where we mostly sit and hang out all the time, into extraordinary, sort of magical consciousness. And then maybe from there, there's hope. Maybe from there, you can make that leap and you can love those people despite their opinions and despite the way they propagate hate. Race, can we love a racist? On ordinary consciousness level, no, we can't. Only maybe there's some way we can get to extraordinary consciousness that we can love the human but not the behavior. And that's how the world changes. And it's such huge, huge work. So I'll pause again if there's anything you want to say, any thoughts.
I just wanted to thank you because this is so timely for me with just like what you shared about the Hindu Tara. I've had like the pleasure and fortune of having some really beautiful teachers from a certain lineage that's just like, the teaching is very much like living life with guardrails up. So it's like there's a lot of rules about how you live your life and how you behave and what you do. And I've really kind of hit an impasse where I'm like, these teachings feel limited now because there's this whole world around me and outside of me that, the teachings are telling me is bad, don't engage with it. And so this teaching is just so perfect because it's like the yogi becomes skillful when you understand how the guardrails work and like your own personal inclinations of like, okay, this is where I tend to like fall off the cliff. but then to take them off and it's like, okay, go in the world and like experience everything. And now you have the tools to know when you need to like regulate and when you can like really run into it. So this is just like so timely and perfect.
Oh, that's so beautiful. It's so true. It's like having your swimmy, puffy swimmies on, and then eventually you take your little, what are they called? Or you take your little water wings off and you get to actually like try it. And can we do it without getting attached? You know, there can you become you as you become liberated. What I wrote down something here. As you become liberated, you recognize the impermanence of everything, so you detach from them. You can enjoy them for a minute, and when it goes away, it goes away. It's like whatever it is, you just sort of like take it or leave it. You don't, it's your addiction. It's that addiction. All these goddesses, by the way, are great for addiction stuff. I mean, that's the idea, is they help you so that you can be in the world. And yeah, just like, oh, look at that. Oh, there's that. Yeah. Anybody else? Say, yeah, anything. Go for it. Hi, Masha.
Hey, so uh, I right before the pandemic, I had a new client who is who is very politically different than me,
Oh,
and he is very wants to talk about it. So he, you know, of all the acupuncturists in all the land, he comes to me where like I have all the goddess, you know, I have like the big Tara with her chant, and I'm always playing chanting, and you know, I'm like, you know, I'm me. So he walks into my office and he really wants on the table to talk about why it's okay. Lord, I can't even, like, it would be so upsetting to even repeat it. Like, why it's okay. He doesn't mean it that way, right? And he actually is like a super loving person.
mm,
He's on my table and I'm treating him for pain. So he's in pain. And he actually is a really good person, despite these crazy views. So every time he would come in, I would have to like play my Tara chants, like literally put the prayer where I could see it. And he was always like, wow, this music is kind of relaxing, you know, like super into it, which was so funny. And we'd have these conversations back and forth. And at the end, you know, he'd get up and he'd be like, well, I see that you're a good person. And I know we disagree, but, you know, I'm a good person too. And right now, like as we speak, he's an essential worker. And I think about him every single day running the trains so that people can get to work and, you know, medical people can do what they need to do. And like, he's been my teacher throughout this whole thing. And like, he's become holy to me. And in fact, he had to come to my house and drop off a check that he got for me from his insurance. And my dogs didn't bark when he came to the door. So it just reminded me of that like ability to transform. And if I told you the things he said, you would want to stick a fork in your eye, you know, like really horrifying things. So
wow.
there we have it. Yeah.
That's so beautiful and so powerful and exactly what we're talking about. Thank you. Oh my goodness. And wow, it's like this is the hardest thing. I can't imagine anything harder right now than doing this work, or anything more powerful than doing this work of loving these people who make us want to stick forks in our eyes. For sure. Yeah. So there's you know, there's this other aspect of these goddesses that yeah, thank you so much. These wrathful goddesses, they're so beautiful because they also, it's like there's nothing that they won't accept. There's nothing that scares them about us. You know, no matter how ugly we can get or anyone can get, they can see that and they can hold that and they can look at you and they can say, you know, I'm not judging you. Why are you judging you? I can have compassion for you. Can you? So there's something so beautiful about the wrathful ones. They're traditionally the more wrathful the goddess, the more frightening the goddess, the more compassionate. They go together. And you know, I've been noticing that how things like work like that. Like everything, we've been talking in my classes a lot. Some of you have been around about like how sort of like the harder life is getting lately, as it gets harder, the suffering gets deeper, as we witness more, it also gets more beautiful. Like music sounds better. The flowers are more beautiful and more fragrant this year. There's something about that, like dark and light, they can't be separated. And so these wrathful goddesses are also the most loving and motherly, because they're the ones that say, bring it all. There's nothing I won't accept from you. There's nothing that you can't bring to me for transformation. There's nothing that I can't bring to them and not be judged. And I was listening to one teacher talk about Tara, and she said, the wrath is not towards you, right? The wrath, they're wrathful, but it's not at the human, it's at the stuff. And that sort of speaks to what Masha was talking about. It's like, it's not the human, it's the stuff. It's, whatever. And the stuff is not necessarily ours, it's archetypal, right? Jung talked a lot about complexes that, like, say, there's a great example, like, say, so you yell at your kid, right? And in the moment you're like yelling at your kid, and you shouldn't be doing this, but you just like can't help it. You're just yelling at the kid anyway. And it's because it's not really you. That's a complex. That's something that that you're sort of possessed by, this archetypal complex to yell at your kid. And so that you can take that to Tara. You can take these complexes, these archetypes. A lot of what I saw a lot of my friends that got really into that pandemic thing, and I was like, and then they sort of can't, like, I realized a lot of them going like, oh, like they didn't know what was behind, or that it wasn't true, that they and then they came back to themselves, and it was so beautiful to witness. And it's like I saw it, like, for a couple of days, this whole sort of archetypal complex sort of took over people, and then and a lot of them were like, oh, okay, so like it's like these complexes, and it's society, and and so people are not themselves a lot, and we're not ourselves sometimes. And so you can say to Tara, like, please take away this thing that's overtaken me. And she won't judge you, and she'll say, okay, I have compassion for you. Can you have compassion for you? And can you have greater compassion for the whole situation? When we take our hatred, can we bring to her, we can bring it all to her. We can bring our negativity, we can bring our hatred of the politicians, all of this stuff, and she can protect us from getting caught up in our own negativity. She can protect us. She can take away that archetypal negativity. She can take away that judgment that we have, all these negative, destructive emotions. That's the ferociousness. So she's not ferocious. They're not mad at us. It's never about the human. It's about the stuff that we carry. And, that's really hard to do in ordinary consciousness. And so we have the mantra. And the mantra, Om Tare, Today, so hot, so beautiful. And you break it down, you can find tons of translations and all different ways to break it down. But this one, I love that. Om, of course, we know what Om is. Tare. Tare is the active form of her name, but it also means star. And specifically, it's talking about the North Star. And so it's like be my North Star. Point me to the highest, my most noble aspirations. Bring me back to my most noble self. Tutare. Tutare is supreme joy. Today means fast, swift one. Quickly. Soha, so be it. So it's like, get here now. Wake me up to joy. Be the North Star that I can follow. We can practice it and see if perhaps, you could bring whatever your stuff is that you're bringing. Take a moment to just check in and notice what it is that you're carrying that you don't want to carry. If there's any negative, destructive emotion, any darkness, any of that sort of those complexes, archetypal complexes, or any hate for any other being or group of beings out there. And You could have real compassion for yourself and compassion for them. And then we could try chanting Om Tare, Tude, Soha a few times. And you can chant it with me, muted or unmuted, it doesn't matter. I'll chant it once, and then we could chant it together a few times. If you want to take the Tara touching the earth mudra, you could put one hand. I think she traditionally has, I'll mirror you, she has her left hand touching the earth and her right hand, oh, I'll mirror you. So left hand on the earth, right hand facing up, holding, right, holding all the suffering of the beings in the world. And that hand, the left hand on the bottom, ready to split the world open so infinite Taras can come springing out. Om Tare, Tude, Soha. If you want to join me, Om Tare, Tude, Soha. Om Tare, Tude, Soha. Om Tare, Tude, Soha. Om Tare, Tude, Soha. Three more. Om Tare, Tude, Soha. Om Tare, Tude, Soha. Om Tare, Tude, Soha. Cry for help. She's the first goddess to teach us to ask for help. So one last little story, or just a version of Tara that there's many of them. I think 21 is often what tradition says, that there are 21 different Taras that you can call on for different things, what you need to, different darknesses that need to be dispelled. And one that might be really helpful is Orange Tara. And Orange Tara is the Tara for healing disease. And the story goes that Orange Tara, how you work with her, we could do it. You could take a seat that feels noble, that feels like you really are tapping into your bodhisattva nature, your own magnificence and generosity and compassion. You can have your hands any way you like, wherever it feels supportive, on your legs or on the floor or anywhere. And you could imagine in front of you this Tara, and you could choose if you want the gentle, motherly, sweet-looking one, or if you want the really fierce one, whatever works for you. That's why Avalokiteshvara has got the 11 faces, because people need different things, right? Some people need motherly and soft, other people need fierce. So you picture one of them. Either you've got this sort of gentle-looking orange goddess in front of you, or you've got a fierce one that's got her garland of skulls and she's surrounded by flames. And you could imagine right from the center of her heart, this Orange Tara, there's like sunbeams, there's rays of orange light coming out. And sort of catapulted out along with these rays are infinite Taras, infinite orange Taras. And they could be as tiny as an atom. And they could be also as big as a mountain, right? So whatever you need. And the ones that are as tiny as little atoms, they ride these rays of orange light right into your body, right into your cells. And it's said that Orange Tara is for attacking disease, both the disease that sort of comes to us from outside, but also the disease that's inside. And so you can imagine these infinite little tiny shimmering orange, golden orange, sparkly little taras, millions of them inside you attacking the darkness. And the darkness could be your anxiety, right? And we know that, yes, viruses come from outside, but stress makes us really, really unhealthy and more susceptible to those viruses. So the little taras come in and they attack all the stress inside of you and all the trauma that's locked in your cellular structure, all the dis-ease and the fear that we carry, and the societal, the collective grief, the collective suffering, and the collective trauma. They get in there, millions of them. And I picture them like little ninja warriors with these orange beams of light. And they get it all. And the big ones, right? The big giant orange taras too, they protect you. You can imagine like two on either side of you. You're flanked by two bright orange shimmering taras that are as big as mountains. And you remember when you feel fearful, when you feel defeated, when you feel like those negative thoughts or energies are overcoming you, that you can call on these two great mountains by your side. You can say, take away the darkness so that I can be medicine. I want to be medicine too. Right? I don't just want to accept the medicine, I want to be the medicine. There's no hurry. You can sit with that image for a few breaths. If your eyes are closed, you could let them open. You could shake your body out a little bit. If you have anything you want to share, please do. Any questions? I don't have all the answers, but I might have some. Or if there's no questions, I have one little Tara story that I could share actually at the end. I love this one. So Tara, there's a story about Tara being really powerful and being this goddess, and all these men, like these great sages, hear about this goddess who has this incredible power, and they all go to her, they approach her, all these guys, and they're like, well, we hear you're pretty powerful and you could do some stuff, and that's really cool and great, but you can only achieve enlightenment if you're a man. So if you're as powerful as they say you are, show us, turn yourself into a man, and then you can be fully enlightened, or come back as man in your next life. And then you can really ascend the ladder and be fully enlightened. And she famously at this point says, I will only ever come back as a woman forever to infinity. I will keep reincarnating as a woman. So she didn't do it. She didn't make a big show of it. She didn't give in to the man. And so she's like this real powerful sort of ally of all women who want to claim themselves, who don't want to hide, who want to really feel empowered. And I love that story. I'm going to unmute you all. So please, if you have anything you want to share, or add, or questions, please say whatever your heart desires. You're all unmuted unless you want to be muted.
Just thank you for putting the into like the real world. Have to put this in. That helps me a lot, because I was having that yesterday of feeling like I want to go find this guy in the news and punch him in the nose, and and being like, wait a minute, that's not yogic. And so when you say that, thank you. It helps to find that balance of like, okay, breathe, be human, and then move on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're all feeling like that. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. I think we'll do Bhuvaneshwari next week. And I'm trying to think who we haven't done yet. Bhuvaneshwari and there's one other one, right? We did Kali, Tara, Matangi, Chinnamasta, Dhumavati, and Lalita. There should be 4 more. So we're going to keep going. I can't remember them right now, but we're going to keep going.
How many?
There's 10 total. So yeah, Bhuvaneshwari is really amazing. I love her. And yeah, anybody else remember the other ones?
There's another one with Sundari in the name, isn't
We
there?
did that one last week. That was, yeah, we did Lalita, Tripura Sundari.
But there's another one with that
Was there
word
another
in.
Sundari? Ah, okay. I'm going to have to go check. Well, I will see you in the goddess room next week sometime. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.